Well, it's 7 a.m. I have been an early riser most of my life. It's a habit that at this point in time will never get broken, I guess. Anyway, I had a dream last night, and I've noticed a trend that I dream more in this stage of life than ever before. Maybe it's because I don't really sleep as well. I don't know, but it reminds me of a quote from scripture that in part says, uh, your young men will have visions and your old men will dream dreams. So I guess this is me dreaming dreams. At any rate, I haven't decided what I'm going to cover in this video. I tend to have the same stories that I go back to. They left such an impression upon me, but life in the 50s and 60s was more than those stories. And I guess a lot of it was just boring. You do what you got to do to get through the day. I wasn't a fan of school. Although I must say I got a really great education for public school. It was better back then, trust me. They tried to at least prepare you for life. I don't know what they're trying to prepare you much for today. I mean, think about it. You go to a store, and if you use cash to pay your bill, if it weren't for the fact that the cash register tells the clerk how much change to give, I'm not sure they know how to count the change back. And of course, we didn't have those the computers and video games and whatnot back then, so we had to make do with what we had. I mean, those of you watching, raise your hand if you know how to use a slide rule. I got mine out sometime back, and it took me a few minutes to get back up to speed on how it worked. But at any rate, it was a different time. And the skills we needed to make a living were different. Also, remember, I'm speaking from my point of view. It might be different and likely is different for somebody else. But for me, foremost on my mind as a young man was, one day I'm going to have to make a living for myself and my family. So life was very practical back then. So at any rate, of course, I've mentioned my father many times in these things, and how blessed I was to work in his store and to gain knowledge from him. And most kids don't have that opportunity because their parents work for somebody else as opposed to being an entrepreneur and owning their own business. So, and that marked me for life pretty much. I was pretty much an entrepreneur my whole life. The times I worked for, all my years of employment, the times I actually was an employee of a company, other than being in business for myself, was, I guess, less than 10% of my career. So, like I said, that sort of shaped me. And that shaping took place in the 50s and 60s, hence the reason this video is listed in that category. But in the near future, I'm going to do a series of videos on philosophy. When I was in the Air Force in electronics school in 1968, one of my instructors was getting close to retirement. And in the middle of the class he was teaching, he'd digress and talk about his retirement. He says, I want to find a place on the beach, hang myself a hammock, and drink margaritas and philosophize. He was an interesting fellow. Another way I was blessed too, having been so attentive to my father and what he was trying to teach me, is that I learned early on that there's things you can learn from everybody. I mean, for example, if you saw a bum on the street, if you would, assuming he's lucid, if you sat down there with him and talked to him for a while, you'd learn something from him. If nothing else, you'd learn how not to become a bum in the street. So, you know, everybody's talking. I mean, here I am talking on YouTube, and everybody's talking. Well, who the heck is listening? I don't know. I'm doing this mainly because if I don't get this down in a video or in writing, when I leave this earth, it's not going to be much left of my experience for anybody else. So anyway, I don't want to get on a sad or too sober a note, but that's sort of my thinking about the next video, is maybe do one on philosophy. What's the meaning of life? And I want to do another one on another video on finances. I tried to drum into the heads of my kids how to manage money, and did a pretty fair job of it. All of them are, I think, have prospered because of it. So, you know, as a parent, that's an important thing. So anyway, since I don't have any particular agenda for this, or script for this particular video, I think I want to keep it short. And I wish you a good morning.